Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න. Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න.
අර පිරිමැස්ම ගැන හිතන ඔබට Vim Liquid වෙතින් රුපියල් 100ක ඉතිරියක්.
හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Friday the 30th of December 2022. Deflating. Sri Lanka's year-on-year CCPI-based inflation for December falls to 57.2%. Devoid. Independent MP AdaDerana English says that the government has no logical reason to postpone elections. Consequences. Demerit system to go into effect from 1st of January, while RMV announces removal of provincial letters.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
A very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. Now in your top story for tonight, Sri Lanka's inflationary pressure dipped by 3.8% in December to 57.2% compared to last month. Now according to the Census and Statistics Department, year-on-year inflation of food group also decreased to 64.4% this month. The Census and Statistics Department issuing the monthly Colombo Consumer Price Index report announced that the CCPI measured year-on-year stood at 57.2% in December, a decrease of 3.8% in comparison to the month of November, which was recorded at 61%. The year-on-year inflation of food group also decreased to 64.4% in December this year from 73.7% recorded in November 2022. Meanwhile, the year-on-year inflation of non-food group decreased to 53.4% in December 2022 from 54.5% in November 2022. According to the Census and Statistics Department, the contribution to inflation by food commodities was 22.25%, while the non-food group contribution was 34.96%. The department also stated that the moving average inflation rate for the month of December 2022 stood at 46.4%, while the corresponding rate for November this year was 42.6%. Now, independent MP AdaDerana argues that the reasons presented by the government currently to not hold the local government election are unsubstantiated and devoid of any logic. He went on to say that his faction, the Supreme Lanka Coalition, is looking at forming an alliance with other political parties to present an alternative economic recovery plan.
From government's side, they have quoted two reasons to postpone the elections. Firstly, they don't have adequate funds to spend on an election. This is absurd because Election Commission has asked only 10 billion rupees as the expenses for the election. Government these days print additional money around 30 billion rupees per day. So giving 10 billion rupees is not a big issue. If they can print money for other things, why not for the election? And this is once and for all. On the other hand, we can make holding the election as another source of foreign currency earning, since there are a lot of countries and organizations are there to support governments to hold elections as a democratic initiative. Secondly, government has said we are not in a position to provide the security because the situation is very much volatile. That is also not acceptable because we could remember during the period of JVP terror 1987 to 89, it has been announced that first 10 voters will be shot dead. Despite that, government held 9 elections during that terror period, 1 presidential election, 1 parliamentary election and 7 provincial council elections. Therefore, government has no logical reason to postpone the election, so it has no choice but to face it. These days, we are negotiating with several parties in the opposition to form a grand alliance to face the local authorities election. So, we are talking to the SLFP, Nidasa Janata Sabhava and other small groups in the opposition to form a grand alliance to face the election, because this alliance is formed not to win the election. Victory, of course, we want to win election, but not merely to win election, but to present an alternative economic recovery program to the nation.
Now, the Commissioner General of Motor Traffic, Nishantha Veerasinghe, says that the demerit point system for driving license will be implemented from the 1st of January next year. Accordingly, a procedure of awarding demerit points and imposing related penalties will be introduced for the offences committed by drivers. The demerit system for the driving license will be implemented from next month in a bid to reduce the number of motor accidents reported in the country. The procedure of awarding demerit points and imposing related penalties will be introduced for the offences committed by drivers. The relevant points of the demerit point system will be deducted over 32 traffic offences. Accordingly, 4 to 8 demerit points will be awarded for driving at high speed. 6 demerit points will be awarded if driven recklessly, regardless of roadworthiness, and for driving without a valid license insurance. 10 demerit points will be awarded if driven without stopping the vehicle following a road accident.
යම්කිසි රියදුරෙක් එම ලකුණු 24 සම්පූර්ණ කරනු ලැබුවොත් එයාගේ රියදුරු බලපත්‍රය වහම අපි අවලංගු කිරීමට අවශ්‍ය කටයුතු කරනවා. ඒ අවලංගු කිරීමේදී එයාට වෙනවා වසරක කාල සීමාවක් නැවත අපි එයාට රියදුරු බලපත්‍ර ලබා දෙන්නේ නැහැ වසරක් යනතුරු. කෙනෙක් වරදක් සිදු කරලා වසරක කාලයක් නැවත එවැනි රථවාහන වරදක් සිදු නොවුනොත් ඔහු උපයාගෙන තිබෙන අකුසලතා ලකුණු වලින් ලකුණු 6ක් අඩු වෙනවා. අවසාන වරද කරලා යා වසර දෙකක කාලයක් කිසිදු වරදක් නොකර තිබුණොත් එයාගේ අකුසලතා ලකුණු සියල්ලම අහෝසි වෙනවා.
The Commissioner General of Motor Traffic also said that a special system will be introduced next year to collect fines from the wrongdoers.
රියදුරු බලපත්‍රයේ එම පොෂ් මැෂින් එකේට ඇතුළත් කිරීම මගින් එයාගේ සියලුම තොරතුරු ඔහුට එතනදිම ලැබෙනවා. ඒ අනුව අදාළ රියදුරු කැමති නම් එම අවස්ථාවේම ගාව තියෙන ක්‍රෙඩිට් කාඩ් එකකින් නැත්නම් අන්තර්ජාලයක බැංකු පහසු ඕනෙම ක්‍රමවේදයකින් එම අවස්ථාවේදීම දඩේ ගෙවන්න පුළුවන් පොලිස් නිලධාරියට ගෙවන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැතිනම් පොෂ් මැෂින් එකෙන්ම නිලධාරියට පුළුවන් දඩ කොලයක් නිකුත් කරන්න.
Meanwhile, he also said that English letters indicating the province of vehicle numbers will be removed when registering a new vehicle and transferring the ownership of a vehicle.
2023 ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා ඉඳන් නිකුත් කරනු ලබන නම්බර් ප්ලේට් වල පළාත් අක්ෂරේ නැහැ. දැනට තියෙන චිප් එක සහිත මේ රියදුරු බලපත්‍රය වෙනුවට QR කෝඩ් එකක් සහිත රියදුරු බලපත්‍රයක් ඉදිරියේදී ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා.
Now, the United Nations Humanitarian Needs for Priorities appeal reached a total of $101.5 million today. According to the resident coordinator of the United Nations Sri Lanka office, Hannah Hamdi, the funds will be used to provide humanitarian assistance of 3.4 million of Sri Lanka's most vulnerable persons. In June, the United Nations launched a $47 million humanitarian appeal for life-saving aid to 1.7 million Sri Lankans who are affected from the ongoing economic crisis covering the period from June to September this year. Now, the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment has recently received information about yet another human trafficking ring involving the foreign employment scam to Jordan. Following an investigation conducted by the SLBFE officials at the airport on Sri Lankans travelling with tourist visas, a group of travelling visitors to Jordan had stated that they intend to making a short visit to the country. However, it was later revealed by the Sri Lankan embassy in Jordan that several tourists who arrived from Jordan from nearly 10 countries, including Sri Lanka, by legal means, now remain stranded in the Arab nation. Thus, the embassy notified the SLBFE to warn Sri Lankan nationals to remain vigilant and refrain from falling prey to such fraudulent schemes orchestrated by traffickers. Stay with us for more news after this short commercial break.
It's hard to keep up with the new when you're listening to the same old Slim Bread Week. A week for professionals.
Welcome back. In your business news, the All Share Price Index closed in green as a result of price gains in counters such as Valuable One, Cooperative Insurance Company Limited and Haley's, with the turnover crossing 1.8 billion rupees. The SPI ended 57.69 points to end at 8,489.66. Similar behavior was witnessed in the S&P SL20 as it closed 9.55 higher at 2,635.63. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in TES Agro. In the meantime, mixed interest was observed in SoftLogic Life Insurance, Lanka IOC and Expo Lanka Holdings, whilst retail interest was noted in SoftLogic Capital, Browns Investments and LOLC Finance. Foreign participation in the market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net buyers. During the year, the SPI and the S&P SL20 lost 30.6 and 37.7% respectively, whilst recording an average daily turnover of 2.79 billion rupees. Now let's take a look at how the rupee fared against other major currencies in the world. Now, oil prices rose today and were on track for a second straight annual gain in a volatile year marked by tight supplies because of the Ukraine war and weakening demand from the world's top crude importer, China. Crude surged in March with global benchmark Brent reaching $139.13 a barrel, the highest since 2008 after Russia's invasion of Ukraine sparked supply concerns. Prices cooled rapidly in 2022's second half on worries about global recession. Brent crude was down 35 cents at $83.11 a barrel today, while US West Texas Intermediate crude rose 10 cents to $78.50. For the year, Brent looks set to gain 6.9% after jumping 50% in 2021. US crude is on track to rise 4.4% in 2022, following last year's gain of 55%. Both benchmarks fell in 2020 as the pandemic hit demand. Oil's fall in the second half of 2022 came as central banks hiked interest rates to fight inflation, boosting the US dollar. This development made dollar-denominated commodities a more costly investment for holders of other currencies. In the meantime, China's zero-COVID restrictions, which were only eased this month, squashed demand recovery hopes. The world's number 2 consumer in 2022 posted its first drop in oil demand for years. Welcome back. Now, Israel's parliament has sworn in Benjamin Netanyahu as its prime minister for the 6th time, inaugurating the country's most far-right religiously conservative government in history. Netanyahu, 73, took the oath of office yesterday after Israel's parliament passed a vote of confidence in his new government. Of the parliament's 120 members, 63 voted in favor of the new government, with 54 votes against it. The most religious and hardline government in Israel's history has been sworn in. Benjamin Netanyahu returned as prime minister after his Likud party formed a coalition with ultra-unionist, ultra-nationalist and ultra-orthodox Jewish allies. There is domestic and international concern it will inflame the conflict with the Palestinians, damage the judiciary and restrict minority rights. Netanyahu has promised to pursue peace and safeguard civil rights. Addressing a special session of the Israeli parliament in Jerusalem before taking office, he stated that his administration would restore governance, peace and personal security to the citizens of Israel. This is a record 6th term as prime minister for Netanyahu, who was ousted by his opponents 18 months ago. But his coalition partners are pledging to lead the country in a new direction. They have promised to give parliament powers to overrule the Supreme Court, made anti-LGBTQ statements and called for businesses to be allowed to refuse services to people based on religious grounds. The first guiding principle of the new government published yesterday declares that the Jewish people have an exclusive and unquestionable rights to all areas of the land of Israel. It says that this includes the occupied West Bank and promises to advance and develop settlements there. In a coalition deal with the ultranationalist Religious Zionism Party he signed last week, Netanyahu agreed to retroactively legalize the outposts. And that's all the news we have for this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
News and information you can trust 24 hours a day. Visit AdaDerana.lk.